We're going to Morzine next year. Any other awesome riding spots under 2 hours drive from Morzine. We'll be riding all the Portes D Soleil area, so looking for something different. So I'm assuming from this email you've visited Morzine many times, you've ridden a lot of the trails there, and you're wanting to obviously explore beyond the known areas. Because if you've only been to Morzine a handful of times, like a couple of times, even just going back there, you're still going to be able to discover new stuff. It's such a vast area. It's got an incredible amount of riding that is very accessible, albeit a bit busy at the moment, or during the summers. Some of the lifts can get really busy, but well worth a look. So one of the quietest bike park in the whole of the Portes D Soleil is Morzine, which is the far end of the Portes D Soleil area, and it's covered on your Portes D Soleil lift pass. This is from Morzine, I believe about an hour's drive, or you can ride there, but it's much better if you can drive, so then you don't have to worry about getting the connecting lifts back. So Morzine would be high on the list. It's very quiet, a handful of pristine trails, and the flow on these trails is incredible. You've got a red, a blue, a yellow, a black, I believe. I think that's it, and that's all you need. You do not need any more than that. They're long runs. The black is very technical. The blue is more like a red. So they're quite technical runs, and they're trails that you ride on, and each lap you go faster, you go faster, until someone usually has a crash. But they are just confidence inspiring trails, really well built, quiet, and yeah, brilliant. But for outside of the Portes D Soleil, I haven't visited many places, to be honest, but I've heard great things about Samoa, which is sort of reeds. I probably butchered that name, but you've got Samoans, which is effectively just next to Leger, down the bottom of the hill. So it's very close. Probably be one of your closest bike parks outside of the Portes D Soleil. And they've held the Enduro World Series round there a few years back, I believe. And I believe they've got some techie trails there as well. I've not ridden there, but I assume it'll be very quiet, or compared to the likes of Morzine, very quiet, sort of more enduro style. What we did do when we were there a few years back, we got a guide from Morzine, and he took us up to the top of Leger. You've got the Nechette's bike park up there. From there we pedalled off down the road, and we took a descent that was, I believe, one of the enduro stages in the EWS, but it went from the very peak of sort of the far end of Leger all the way down into Samoa village, and it was a brilliant descent. Really good descent. Techie, loamy, just amazing scenery, but you definitely would want a guide because there was quite a few cut-offs that you'd need to know. But the option is, from there you can take this run down and do a day's riding in Samoa, and then you can get a shuttle back to the top of Leger. Obviously you're going to have to pay for this shuttle and pre-book it, or at least organise it when you're out in Morzine, because yeah, we did that a while ago and it was absolutely brilliant. The only issue when we did it was that the weather was absolutely diabolical, and I don't think the lift in Samoa was open, so we effectively did the descent down and then just got the ride back up to the top of Nechette's bike park, and from there you've got runs all the way down into Leger / Morzine. So that Samoa is a big one. What else have you got? You've also got some other small little bike parks. As I've heard of one called Bernex, Again, probably butchered the name. Small little bike park called Burn X. I don't know much about that, but that's roughly 3/4 an hour from Morzine. You've also got Le Clouzaz, as it reads, and that's, again, not far and quite a small bike park, I believe, but probably worth checking out. If you want to avoid the queues, if you're there in peak summer, I'd say it's probably not a bad shout, and you've got a vehicle, you might as well check them out. But like I mentioned at the start of this question, if you're only visiting Morzine for the first few times, you really don't need to go out of the bike parks that you've got on your ticket, because there's so much to explore. And before you head out on these trips, you think you've got a lot of ambition, you want to tick it all off a list, you want to do this, you want to go and do that as well, do a bit of cross country, do blah blah blah. We've done this before, myself and a few friends. We took, I think each of us had 3 bikes: downhill bike, road bike and cross-country bike, and we were going to be riding downhill laps all day, cross-country in the evenings, day of cross-country, maybe a bit of fitness on the road bike, do some hill climbs. We got there, I think we spent the first afternoon on a cross-country loop, and one of the guys did 1 road ride, and the rest you're just absolutely knackered from the downhill. I mean, you're going there to downhill, and realistically you don't need to spread far from the bike park. But that just about wraps up this progression session. Thanks for tuning in. Please send in your questions. All the best.